E-commerce expansion myths blasted. Successful cross-border expansion help. Listen to the show to hear how one UK company is helping e-commerce sellers successfully expand into Europe and double their profits. Hosted by Andy Hooper of Global E-commerce Experts.
Welcome everybody. We've got another exciting podcast today here at Global E-commerce Experts. We've got an amazing guest on with us, one of our clients, who's going to be able to talk you through their things that really work for them, and the things that they might have actually in hindsight done a bit more on or changed slightly as the process went through. With any e-commerce expansion, there's always some things to learn. So hopefully we've got an amazing guest on for you this afternoon who's going to be able to talk you through the highs and lows, so that you back wherever you are going to be able to take that information, glean that information, and make sure your e-commerce expansion is a success going forward. So I'm going to go straight into this then and just welcome Jacob. So welcome, Jacob.
Thanks for having me on, Andy.
Yeah, no problem at all. So Jacob, why don't you just tell us a bit about you to start off with? How did you get into this e-commerce space?
Yeah, no, great question. It was got here. Our company 0K. We make towelettes that are designed to cool you down and clean you off when you're hot and sweaty. So great for the summer months or after exercising. Really, anytime you're hot and sweaty. And my business partner and I came up with the idea several years ago. We did a crowdfunding campaign online, raised a bunch of money on Kickstarter, and then brought the concept to life. And so it really started e-commerce as a way to sell this product direct to consumer online. And that was sort of the impetus for starting the business, selling directly to people, and then working our way up, of course, to Amazon, and then further expanding internationally.
Yeah, amazing. So whereabouts in the States are you based at the moment?
Yeah, we're based in New York City.
Okay.
And East Coast.
And have you always been in New York City? Is that where you've always been?
Yeah, actually born and raised here, left for university, lived abroad for a couple of years, and then came back, was working in financial services actually for a little while, and with a few startup companies in different areas, energy, and then came up with this idea, worked on the side while I was doing those other jobs, and eventually started doing it full time.
Yeah, so I mean, I just want to go right back to that inception. So obviously, I've seen the Kickstarter. We've had a few clients that have come through Kickstarter or other crowdfunding platforms are available, I should say. So I'm really keen. Where did that idea come from? How did the spark come between you and your partner?
Yeah, is one of those personal needs that were the kind of our idea originated. So my business partner and I were friends, and we were also colleagues at the time. And so we took a weekend vacation with a bunch of friends. We're coming back. It was a classic northeast muggy hot summer day where it was 90 degrees Fahrenheit, 90% humidity, and we were on a bus that didn't have any air conditioning, so we were just sweating nonstop. And we thought, wouldn't it be great to have a product that would, you could wipe down, cool you off, clean you down, and then kind of dispose of on the go, so you didn't have to use your sleeve or shirt or handkerchief or something, maybe a paper towel that'll stick to your head. And so that was kind of how the idea was born. And we got back from the trip a couple of days later. I couldn't get the idea out of my head, and I said to him, remember this thing we were discussing on the bus? Would you want to see if we could make it a product? And so that was sort of the origination. We went online, bought everything we could find that kind of fit the bill of something that'd be similar to this, and tested it out, and none of them really did the job that we were looking for. So let's see if we can make something that would really scratch our itch.
Yeah, and that for me is that whole idea. Come up with the idea, and so between coming up with the idea and getting it onto Kickstarter, what sort of time frame were you looking at?
Yeah, so I think it was about a year and a half from the time that we first said let's try to work on this till we actually formally launched the Kickstarter. So Neither of us were both, our backgrounds are more in business, and we didn't really have that product formulation background. So it was a big learning curve of figuring out, who could help us to, get the first iteration of this product out, and see if it works. So very steep learning curve, but we, tested on ourselves with other friends and family, continually tweaked it until we thought we had something pretty decent that we could put on Kickstarter.
Yeah. So then you got on Kickstarter, got a campaign funded, which is great. So congratulations. So that's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's really, really positive. So then you did the campaign. You obviously sold. I think you oversold on your campaign, which was great. And then you then launched the product, so to speak. I know you used Kickstarter to launch the product as well. But where did you go from there? Where were the majority of your campaigners from? Where was it? All around the world? Was it just the States?
Yeah, no, great question. Majority of our backers were in the U.S., though we did have a few international. I think a couple in Europe, a couple in South America, Central America, a few in Canada. But I'd say probably about 85% were U.S. based. Of course, a significant portion were friends and family, and then a whole slew of other people online that found the product and the project and wanted to back us and get the first iteration of it.
Yeah, perfect. So you did the first iteration. Then what was the process from there? How did you end up on your own website, Amazon, all the other platforms that you might have ended up on in that time?
Yeah. So actually, Kickstarter was very valuable to us because not only was it, we wanted to see, okay, is this something that other people will find interesting as a product, and want to actually put money down, because that's, of course, the best validation if the idea is worthwhile or not. But then also be able to get that feedback directly. So, if you put a product online, you sell it, it's really hard to grab that consumer again to see if they like it other than their buying pattern. And sometimes people forget, or, when people support product on Kickstarter, they tend to be very passionate, very interactive, and they're willing to really give you their thoughts. So it's a great way for us to solicit feedback. What can we do better? So we actually took that and then spent another year redeveloping the product to incorporate all the feedback we got and really kind of get it to the level we thought where we could have something that would be much more successful. So we felt like the product was 85% of the way there, and then we wanted to get the next 15%. And then so once we kind of relaunched it, we first, of course, had it on our website. We started putting it up on Amazon, and we had a little bit of an issue initially because it was a brand new product. It wasn't like we were selling Kleenexes, and we just click on the Kleenex product and create our own listing. So you had to meet certain criteria in order to get on. And since we literally had just launched it, we didn't have all the previous purchase orders and the other history. Exactly. I think we got a little lucky. I think it was someone from Amazon a couple weeks later contacted us and said, "Oh, I work with small companies to try to onboard them onto Amazon," and that was what enabled us to get going. Working with them, and they provided a little bit of support, and this, I guess, was back in 2016 or so, and obviously now Amazon's a much different piece with advertising and everything else.
Yeah. So you was on Amazon for a couple of years, really building that brand awareness, and so when did you first expand into the UK?
Yeah, so let me think. So I guess it was basically a year ago, a little bit more. So I think it was Amazon sent out an email, "Hey, we're helping businesses expand to the UK," and or actually it was to Europe, like European expansion. Your product seems like it would be great. There was a webinar they had, and then after that webinar, they said, "We'll set you up with a specialist that will help walk you through that process, and will be a support person to make sure your product's successful." So it's kind of like an evaluation, and then helping provide the steps so we can get there.
Yeah. Okay. So they then helped with those various steps and the various processes. And obviously that's how we ended up, you working together, I suppose. You came over and we were part of that process, which was great. So in between that, I want to go to Europe, to get into Europe. What were the things that you came across that was relatively straightforward to start off with?
Yeah, so it was interesting. As I mentioned, our process to start selling in Europe, it wasn't previously like part of our business plan or part of our thinking, okay, in 2017, 18, end of 17, early 18, we want to plan to move to Europe. It was, okay, this opportunity got presented to us. Maybe let's try to take it. It seemed like the window was relatively short based on what we were being told from Amazon in terms of providing support for that. So I think typically when we look into making any sort of expansion or, spending any amount of capital or providing, for research, we're going to put in initiative to try to do our due diligence and really do as much research as possible to see, is this something that's going to be successful? Is the time and energy going to be worthwhile? We didn't quite do that with Amazon because we thought, okay, we kind of have this infrastructure, we have this support person. It seemed to work well initially when we first got up and running. So why not do it? It's, population-wise, maybe we can achieve similar sales levels to the U.S. So it was a little kind of haphazard in that way, and just trying to take that opportunity. I think early on, working with you guys is relatively straightforward in terms of going through that process to worry about all the taxes and regulations, and which I think if we didn't have that, there would have been clearly just not move forward with the process at that stage. It's already enough to have to worry about those things in the U.S. And then when you're not local and you don't know all that information, you don't have someone on the ground, it becomes too much of a headache.
Yeah, well, that's quite a typical sort of thing that people say is that from a VAT point, look, you just sort it out, it's easier. I get it. It is one of those, look, you crack on, fella, because I just don't need that hassle right now. Let me worry about selling my product. That's the key thing for me. And I think that's what, it's the similar conversation, obviously, we have with a lot of people, which is amazing. So you managed to bring the product over. What were the more challenging parts of the expansion? What were the things that you perhaps didn't consider or didn't think of, or Amazon didn't tell you, or what were those sort of things?
Yeah, so it's a great question. It became a big challenge getting up and running on Amazon, and that created a big headache for us initially and a lot of time and energy. So the person we were working with, made all these claims. Oh, we're going to help you launch. We're going to provide this support. I'm going to, take data from, similar kind of companies and use that to help you create advertising campaigns. I'm going to work with you for a full year. And as soon as our listings went live, that person just disappeared. There was no email. There was no nothing like you're ready to go. Our listings were up. They weren't accurate. So we had all these errors. They weren't showing up, or, information was inaccurate, and he wasn't available to help us. The tools where we uploaded it weren't really working. And so it took us several months to really get the listings correct and accurate for all of the markets. And then, of course, we didn't have any of that support that we thought we were going to have, which really changed the calculus for us of, if we knew it was just going to be getting up and running yourself and then that was it, we maybe would not have moved forward with the initiative, because we had seen kind of how that success had helped initially getting up on Amazon and creating visibility where you're a brand new product, you're small. And so I think that was an issue that created a lot of challenges.
Yeah. So I just want to pick up on some of those bits. So what you said about the different marketplaces. So have you translated all your products into what I'd call native tongue rather than just a Google Translate for those products?
Yeah, no, we've only done the former. So it's really just, Google Translate. That's what the person at Amazon was saying. Oh, you don't need it. Yeah, Google Translate works fine. I can, have someone internally that kind of takes a review of it, which I'm not really sure really occurred either. And then, of course, if you want to tweak things over time, you don't really have that. If you don't have a native speaker to make those translations into French or Spanish or German, Italian, etc.
Yeah. And there's, that I think's, I mean, to be fair, Google Translate is a pretty decent tool to use. It's very straightforward. It's very easy. And, some people take it to the next level and do translations and others don't. And that's absolutely fine. Everyone's got everyone's product is slightly different as well in those different countries. So, okay, so then there was that side. So what about the market itself? How would you describe the market? What are the differences in the market? How do you see that your products perhaps sell slightly different, or the terminology is different? Any sort of knowledge there that's been useful?
Yeah, I think that's been one of the challenges, of course, is figuring out how something, the terminology, even if it's translated one way, what people will react to, and what it's seen as in the local marketplace. And so I think that's been a little bit of a challenge, figuring out, okay, what are the buzzwords, or how would someone in Spain who's looking up our product, that could be different than, of course, being in the United States, closer to Mexico, and Spanish speakers in Mexico, how, they would refer to it or try to look it up. Even in the UK, of course, can be a little different, where, here, just not a non-product example, but of course, a lift versus an elevator. So if you're marketing elevator components, you'd have a tough time selling it if you're using U.S. terminology in terms of English. So I think, that has been a challenge, and it's something, kind of continue to try to work on and tweak over time. As you're kind of alluding to, when you have 5 different markets, even cumulatively, if they equal a similar size population, there's a lot more management that you really have to do if you want to be successful. And then, so we kind of have noticed over time, we get more sales in the UK, probably, of course, I'm sure it has some part to do with the language differences, or lack of language differences, versus Italy, we've kind of sold less, and maybe more in Germany as well. So, and maybe that's also just population differences. But, that's something probably where we think early on we should have focused on maybe 1 or 2 markets rather than after all of every country, and to really slowly hone in, get good traction, and then kind of continue to hit the next one, where, things like that you don't really consider in the US.
Yeah, well, you're right. I mean, as you say, the market size, the Europe versus North America, is pretty similar in size, but you've got 5 markets inside one, really. And they are all slightly different. And you're right, the terminology is different. Just from the States to the UK, an elevator is a great example of that. It's just those. Except we tend to know those a little bit easier because we hear them all the time. We make a bit of fun out of it quite often. So that's sort of how it goes. But yeah, I think that's really key. So perhaps launching the markets one by one would work really, really well for some people as they sort of build up their experience and knowledge in those markets. Would you suggest that going forwards if you was to do it again?
Yeah, I think so. I think to do it again, definitely would approach it that way. One of the things that we do a lot of in the U.S. is trying to use social media as a mechanism for driving online sales or awareness. And so, of course, it works similarly in Europe, where if you're, reaching out to people that are influencers in the category where you're selling, in our case, probably more athleisure or athletics or sport or exercise, you want to find those people, and, you're going to have even big ones that have more global appeal are still going to have, the largest concentration from wherever country their home market tends to be. So you're going to get more bang for your buck by, working with finding those people, sending them samples, telling them, hey, we're now on Amazon UK. So if anyone wants to buy, it's obviously much more affordable than it would be buying from our website and then having to pay for shipping from the US. And then, of course, you have the 2-day shipping if they're Prime members, which is, of course, great. So, using that as a mechanism to start to create interest and drive sales locally, you probably would be more effective than just doing it mass and then trying to hit every single market and hoping to be successful. You go after everyone, you get no one. So that's really focusing, I think, is always something we found is the way to be successful more generally. And I think that applies the same thing if you're expanding internationally.
Yeah, quite right. Yeah, I totally get it. And so from a shipping point of view, where do your products come from? Are you bringing your products in from the States, or are you bringing them from Asia somewhere? How does that work at the moment?
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward for us. We actually manufacture in the U.S., and so we ship from the U.S. to the U.K. And since we do FBA, that part's actually very straightforward and pretty easy for us, which is nice. And then the volumes we're doing tend to just do air freight, so we're not doing pallets and pallets. So again, the time is makes it easy in terms of getting it to market.
And it's not a heavy product, is it?
Right. Yeah, it's very light. I mean, they're small, paper non-woven towelettes, so very light, and you can get a decent amount of volume into several large cartons.
Yeah. And so from a marketing point of view, what sort of additional marketing did you do? Did you focus more in on the social media side? Have you focused on pay-per-click Amazon? What's the sort of focus that you went down?
Yeah, I think we've mostly concentrated on the social media, so like sending samples and trying to get people to raise awareness about the product locally, and then also, of course, advertising on Amazon. That's just kind of have to be doing that, I think, regardless of your product, because the way Amazon works, it's a virtuous cycle of more interest, higher visibility, higher ranking, and even if you're not doing it, your closest competitor is, and you're just going to end up falling down the charts. So I think that seems to be one of the most effective ways, especially those two combined. So it creates external interest and then internal interest from people that are just looking around for comparable products.
Yeah, fantastic. And so for other people looking to expand, what's the one single piece of advice that you would give to them? Look, if you're going to expand, this is what you should do, or this is the one thing to focus in on.
Yeah, I think of course the number one thing would be make sure that your business is at that point where, for us, it was an opportunistic initiative, and rather than, I think, if looking at it again, rather than looking at it opportunistically, look at it, does this make sense for the business right now? Why? And then making sure that this is something that's going to be successful in the markets you're bringing it to. And, if you do that, the legwork on that, then you'll probably have a decent chance of success. And then, of course, the rest is just getting the word out. But I think that's the most important aspect, is really make sure that you have the focus. It makes sense to do it at that point in time for your business, and you're going to put the resources behind it, because if you're not going to, then it's not going to be successful, of course. So it can't be the secondary. It has to be a primary initiative.
And I think that's really key, isn't it? It has to be at your forefront. It's not something you can just do as let's just do this on the side and just trickle it. You have to really focus on it, don't you?
Yeah, you really have to focus on it. Just like put the resources behind it, you're not going to have any success. You have to it's kind of like winning the lottery. Just it is, wherever anyone starts their business and sells their products, it wasn't, most people, they don't just put a website online and then get millions of sales, in the first few months. They've done something that kind of drives that traction or creates that success. So you kind of have to replicate that wherever you're going. Sometimes the tactics are a little different, of course. Some people in certain countries don't use Instagram as much, they use Facebook, but you figure out where how people use their time online and how you can market to them more effectively.
Yeah, I mean, in the world of social media, we're very, very fortunate where the cost of ads on Facebook, on Instagram, it's perfect. It just gives us an advantage. People don't. So yeah, that's amazing. So is there any sort of support and resources that you wish were available when you were expanding that would have really been useful, that either you've seen now or we still wish that this would have been really useful?
Yeah. So one thing that I think is useful now is we're using an ad optimizing company for Amazon sponsored products. So being able to have, that's something that's automatically kind of runs in the background. So we don't have to kind of check the keywords, so that, you set up an automatic campaign. They find the ones that work the best for you, create new campaigns for you. And then that also helps you tweak your listing over time. So that we've kind of started working with now that we had initially, which I think would have been helpful early on. So that's definitely one. And then maybe just being a little bit more aggressive and focusing on the markets. So it's not really a tool; it's more of a actual strategy.
Yeah, okay. All right. Well, I think that's been really, really useful. And I'm sure that everyone else listening would have got a huge amount from it. If people want to get in touch with you or get in touch with the brand, how can they do that?
Yeah, so you could visit us online at 0kwipes.com. So that's ZERO, the letter K, and then WIPES.com. So it's our website. We have a form there. You can email us at info@0kwipes.com, and then of course, check us out on social media. So Facebook page, 0kwipes, and then also on Instagram at 0kwipes. So we got all those.
So we can find you all over social media, all over there. Really, that's been super useful for me listening to your story and what you've been through, and some great ideas there for other people coming through on what they could do and how they could do it to help make it a success. So I just want to say thank you very much for your time. I know it's really, really precious. So I really, really appreciate it, especially from another halfway around the world. You've given your time. We really, really appreciate it. So thank you very much. Is there anything else you'd like to say at the end to help people out or to move forwards?
No, I just want to thank you for having me on. It's been great working with you guys, and you're not every company that you have kind of the hands-on support or interest in customer feedback. And I think from our own experience about how we like to run our business, always trying to solicit customer feedback and do better. So anything that's a good universal business practice to have, especially for e-commerce. We're really putting an emphasis on customer service and listening to the customer. So I think that's always good advice, regardless. Even if you're selling on Amazon, sending feedback forms to people and really understanding their issues with the product or listing or whatever it may be to constantly do better. So, but especially working with other people who care about their customers, it's good and makes a big difference.
Great. Yeah. Well, once again, thank you very much. It's been super appreciated. That's it for this episode. You can check out the next episode, which will be coming very, very soon. There's more coming on Brexit. You'll all be pleased to know about that, because obviously that's a big question at the moment, and we'll have another one of those coming very soon. And that's it from us for the moment, and we'll catch you again next time.